Good afternoon. The Information Technology and General Services Committee will now come to order. We have 7 items on the agenda. So far, we only have 1 public comment card on item number 2. If anybody would like to make public comment to this committee, you can fill out the cards in the back and bring them forward to the staff so that we can call you up in proper order. With that, it seems like the longest item on the agenda will be item number 1. If any other items start taking too long, we'll go back to item number 1, but we'll begin with item number 2.
Item number 2, motion, Reyes, Garcetti, relative to proposed property swaps with private entities in connection with vacant city property located at 962 West 37th Avenue and 1198 Montecito Drive and related matters.
Okay. We have a public comment card from Councilmember Reyes' office on this item.
Good afternoon. Jill Soriel from Councilmember Reyes' office. I thought it'd be helpful to just give you a little background on what we're trying to accomplish with the motion. You have a map in front of you that I passed out that describes the location. Our office has been working with General Services, Rec and Parks, and CLA for over a year now to try and initiate the swap. The property, you can see along the 110 freeway, just to the northwest is Sycamore Grove Park, which is a Rec and Parks facility. And in between the park and the freeway, there's a long linear strip that used to be old Union Pacific Rail right-of-way. And so our goal is to transform that linear strip into a trail connection that the park and the community can use. There's a large portion that's already, we have a city easement for the sewer construction that's taking place, but there is a small portion that is privately owned. And so we've identified that portion with the private property owner to swap for surplus properties. And so this is just to get the ball rolling, and we look forward to trying to get it into a trail. There's a lot of illegal dumping right now, and it's kind of a nuisance to the community.
Okay. Give it better use and better visibility, and will hopefully, very likely, reduce the illegal dumping and those kinds of activities.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Is anybody here from anybody else here for public comment on item number 2? Anybody else here for public comment on item number 2? Seeing and hearing none. Public comment on item number 2 is now closed. Is there anybody here from General Services Department? I think what the action of this committee is going to be is to report back in 60 days. I just want to know if you feel comfortable that you can do it a little quicker than that, since this has been contemplated for such a long time. Anybody here? GSD? What this committee is going to be asking of GSD is that you initiate the surplus property process on this item and get back to this committee. Do you need the 60 days? Is 45 doable? You tell me.
60 days is fine. We can initiate the surplus process, but it won't be completed, though. It'll be in process. Then we can have an agreement from the buyer that this is the value, sale price, and the next steps would be so-and-so.
Okay. All right. So report back in 60. This committee is going to instruct GSD to report back in 60 days. So we'll continue this motion to be heard in this committee in 60 days. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Thank you. We now move to item number 3.
Item number 3, CAO report and ordinance relative to the proposed sale of surplus property located at 7111 South Onceo Avenue.
Okay.
Diana Mangiolu, Office of the CAO. Before you is a proposal for the sale of surplus property located at 711 South Bonsai. The purchaser is the Community Redevelopment Agency for the purchase amount of $800,000. The property is currently occupied by the University Muslim Medical Association, who will continue to provide health care services from the facility after the sale of the property. The funds will be deposited into the Community Development Block Grant Fund number 424, and the CAO's office is recommending to this committee that they take action on the following recommendations: that the property is no longer required for city use, and that its public interest is best served by direct sale to the CRA. Find that the property is exempt from CEQA, adopt the attached ordinance, and instruct GSD to complete the transactions to effectuate the sale. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Mr. Park, any questions or comments?
Please, it is moved.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody here to make public comment on item number 3? Item number 3 is open for public comment. Is anybody here for public comment on item number 3? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 3 is now closed. With that, we have a motion to approve the CAO report. That item is approved.
Do we have a council date?
Not for that particular item. The soonest we can get it to council will be the Friday, the 23rd.
23rd of this month?
Yes.
Item number 4.
Item number 4, motion, Perry raised, relative to a proposed ground lease with the Museum of Contemporary Art in connection with the Little Tokyo Public Art Park and related matters. This item has also been referred to the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee.
Did we have a request from Councilwoman? Yeah. Okay, on this item, at a request from the Councilwoman Jan Perry's office, we're going to continue that item for 60 days. Apparently, the community is dialoguing with the Councilwoman, and things are going well. So we'll hear that item in 60 days. We now move to item number 5.
Item number 5, CAO report and ordinance relative to the proposed sale of surplus property located at 800 North Main Street. This would be the old fire station number 4. It is scheduled for council on January 16, 2009.
Okay.
Diana Mangiolu, Office of the CAO. Before you is a proposal for the sale of surplus property of a property located at 800 North Main Street. The purchaser is the California Endowment. The purchase price is $2,570,000. The property is located in Council District 14. Our office is recommending to the committee that you take action on the following findings: that the property is no longer required for city use, that public interest best be served by the direct sale to the to the California Endowment, find that the property is exempt from CEQA, adopt the attached ordinance, and instruct GSD to complete the transactions to effectuate the sale.
Okay. It's 2.57 million, right?
Yes.
2,570,000.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to clarify that. And also, and it was appropriately appraised basically in the middle of 2008, and the proceeds from the sale will be deposited in the general fund.
Yes.
But the chairman, any questions?
It's a good thing.
Yeah. Let's do this more often. Okay. We are on item number 5. Is anybody here to make comment on item number 5? Item number 5 is now open for public comment. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 5 is now closed. With that, this committee has a motion to approve the CAO report. Therefore, that CAO report is approved. Item number 6.
Item number 6, CAO and ITA reports relative to proposed amendment number 2 to supplemental agreement number 1 to contract number C-108205 with the EMC Corporation for training, implementation, and customization services for document of content management products.
Emily Maeda, Office of the CAO. Before you is a CAO report recommending the approval and execution of an amendment to the contract with EMC Corporation. The proposed amendment allots $109,000 to the fire department to transfer documents from the medical liaison unit to Documentum. There's no change to the term or the total contract amount. The Document Management Steering Committee has authorized the addition of the fire department. The proposed agreement is in compliance with the city's financial policies. I'm available for your questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for that report. Is anybody here to make public comment on item number 6? Public comment on item number 6 is now open. Looks as though nobody's coming forward on item number 6 for public comment. Therefore, public comment is now closed on item number 6. With that, we have a motion to approve. We have a motion to approve the CAO report. With that, this motion is approved. We now move to item number 7.
Item number 7, continued from November 20th, 2007 and February 5th, 2008. Motion, Perry Parks, relative to the acceptance of the gift to the city of a sculpture called the Big Rick and Renee Memorial Monument and related matters.
Reginald Jones Sawyer, Department of General Services. General Services has been working with the Remembered Association for the past year to complete the details of the monument. We are pleased to report that we have all successfully answered every last question and concerns involving this installation. General Services would like to recommend approval of this item, after which the association will be able to receive the last funds. I believe they're requesting neighborhood matching funds needed to complete the installation at the Public Works building. Ron Olive from the association is also here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Also, about how heavy is this monument?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Councilman Parks, Ron Olive with the association. The weight approximately is 2,300 pounds, a little over 2,300 pounds.
Not as heavy as an elephant, but big. We all thought this was going to be a simple matter, and we often do when we introduce matters to the council, but sometimes they're not as simple as they look. Now, the communication between the city staff who've taken it upon themselves to embark on this great idea and GSD, that's been much better as of late, correct?
Oh, it's been great. It's excellent.
Good, good. Yeah, we had some snags in the past. In my opinion, I think a little bit too much personality and not enough focus on the task at hand. I'm glad it finally came together. Any questions? No? Okay. With that, is there anybody here for public comment on item number 7? Any other
If I
comments?
just make one comment. We do want to thank the committee and General Service for your patience and your continued support. It has been a long process, and I'm glad we got to the table a few times and agreed on a process, and as you say, focused on what needed to be done. So it's been a long process, but we thank you very much.
Yes,
for
it
your help.
has, and coincidentally, I think it's, if we approve this, get it to the council in short order, we'll probably have a nice ceremony right around the time of year that we were shooting for before. Maybe not the year we were shooting for, but at the time of year. Any other comments? Okay, all right. With that, public comment is open on item number 7. Is there anybody else coming forward on public comment on item 7? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 7 is now closed. With that, we are finally adopting the motion. This motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 1.
Item number 1, Information Technology Report relative to a request for proposals for email and office system services.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. Mark Wolf with ITA.
And Kevin Crawford with ITA.
Okay.
Council members, the report that's before you, ITA is in regards to an efficiency proposal. ITA is actively pursuing initiatives to create efficiencies and reduce city IT spend in response to the city's fiscal crisis. Email and PC office software are areas that we have investigated. Utilizing an outside service provider to perform these services will provide an estimated savings between 8 to 30 million over a 3-year period. It also will provide reduction in power and cooling costs, increase our capacity and performance, and provide new productivity tools for the city.
Will it open up space? Space?
Yes, it will. There are 60 servers that are currently involved as part of the infrastructure for email services, so those would be removed. ITA, along with key city departments, have drafted an RFP that ITA plans to issue for email and PC office system services. The services will be available to city staff via the internet and will be held, maintained, and upgraded at the vendor site rather than on-site. The RFP addresses issues like security, data ownership, and service level expectations. As this is a significant change to city staff and operations, we're notifying the council of this RFP prior to publication. ITA has held several informational briefing meetings with council and mayor's office staff, city departments, and other interested parties prior to any release of an RFP. The new system is expected to provide many new capabilities to city staff as well as significant cost savings. And we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. When you say cost savings, by and large, we're attributing those savings to the costs incurred by the city's general fund. Not exclusively, we might have little grants here and there, but by and large, this support of the system that we have right now, by and large, is a city general fund.
That is correct,
matter.
Councilman.
Thank you. Now, when it comes to having a web-based email system, would the data remain confidential and secure?
Absolutely. All the data would remain owned by the city. We would administrate it from within the city systems.
And legally, it would remain our proprietary information, not anyone else?
No.
It's our information?
Absolutely.
And if I could add to that, it's similar to the way the city procedures are today. In the event of a public records request or some other type of legal request, like a subpoena for records, ITA would still be the interface for getting access to those records.
Not
and we would be
third party.
Correct. And we would be working with the impacted department or elected official office in terms of notification, as we do today.
Now, what you just said, does that stand to be true if, for example, the feds, as in the FBI or somebody like that, wanted to get that information? Couldn't they go directly to the proprietor, the third party? When those guys walk in, I mean, people would just run for their lives and
The
let them do
legal
what they
cases
want.
in this area, and it's already gone to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
On who owns the data and so on and so forth. The contracts clearly state where the data is owned, and that is passed to us. Even if they were requested to provide any data of whatsoever from the contracts, they have to contact us first for the right to step in the way of the release.
Okay. So there is some legal precedent for them not being forced to even give an entity like what I just described, that information, at least without notifying us that they're staring at a document that says that they have to turn that information over, what have you. The city would at least be notified by the third party that there's some compliance thing that they're being asked to comply with. It's not a private party that's asking that, but it's the federal government.
Correct.
So are you describing to us that the control that we have over our data with the current system that we have today, which is in-house, right? You're saying that when you get right down to it, the control of that data is still, by and large, no changes when it comes to control of that data?
The control of the data would actually be better with the new system because of the new tools that we would be getting with the services that we procure.
Give me an example of a tool that you're using.
E-discovery is one that we can go in and do searches using, doing searches better than we can do in the current email system without having to add on or upgrade the systems in-house, which would be more expensive.
And e-discovery is the technical term that we use for whenever there's a need to extract information from the total data of all the emails that would reside or even other types of files in the system. E-discovery would be like with a public records request or with a subpoena in those instances where we would need to be able to pull out the information that's requested, say it was for some specified time frame, for a particular project, and maybe some designated set of individuals. So these automated tools will allow us to do this more easily. Today, we don't have automated tools to do that, so it's really a manual process and it's very labor-intensive on our staff. And every day, it seems like there's something new that's coming around the corner for public records requests and those types of things that require this type of work.
So when it comes to, say, somebody wanted to hack the system that we have today, by and large, we couldn't necessarily, we're not likely to get mad at anybody but ourselves for perhaps not making sure that that kind of access could have been prevented. Now, if we go with a third party, such as this RFP process looks like we're looking toward, some of that blame might be able to fall on that third party. I mean, we would have to look at it and say, well, how the heck did they get in? Did somebody accidentally leave an access door open, electronic access door open or something like that over there, they would have to answer to us and help us understand how in fact they got access. They would help us, or very likely they would be the ones that would actually point out to us, we have responsibility for this system, that's what you hired us for, we're going to tell you as soon as we find out. It's the third party's job to find out how that access was made and then to report to us why it happened, how it happened, and whether or not something that they did or didn't do contributed to that accessibility.
That is correct. And to add, today in the city's systems, we have a handful of individuals that are focused and dedicated to security functions, and the potential bidders that would be bidding on an RFP of this nature, they have hundreds, near to 1,000 individuals that are focused on security. So, I mean, that is the name of the game for their business. Their security expertise, I would say, would be at a much higher level than what a municipality like us would have.
Mm-hmm. So what you're describing is, the answer to my next question is whether or not having an internal controlled email system like GroupWise, what we use today, versus an external web-based system, we're more secure going forward with a third party than we are today? Based on what's out there and based on how big these companies are, and like you just described, they have many, many, many more bodies making sure that security is a priority.
The largest companies that have expressed an interest in this type of work with the city spend upwards of 5 to 10 times what we spend on our entire IT budget just on security.
Okay. What other governmental organizations are using a web-based email system?
The Miami-Dade is moving. The state of Kansas has selected a system. Washington, D.C., Niagara.
Washington, D.C. actually is operational, and they have approximately 17,000 employees that are utilizing the service.
Have we called them to ask them if they had any inadvertent, unexpected problems that were not anticipated before they were up and running?
We have. Our general manager, our technical staff have spoke, as well as our general manager, Randy Levin, has spoke to their chief information officer, and they've had extensive details and discussions about the transition to this type of service, and they were extremely pleased with the process and with the end result of the services that they're getting.
You just mentioned it's likely that some very big players in the IT world would be bidding on such an RFP once we put it out. Some organizations have tens of thousands of employees, I'm sure. But as of late last year, we saw some companies, huge, massive international companies in a different arena, that had marquees on their door, said, been in business for 200 years, can't do any worse than hang out with us, we're around forever. They're gone. Something like that happens with one of these companies, third parties. Should we go to this type of external system? Have you thought about what we would do? Would we keep GroupWise in the wings and then refire it up or something, or to keep going until that fleshes out? I mean, again, this is something beyond anyone's control.
Right.
But what do we do in that situation?
Yes, we have looked into that area. We've got questions in the RFP specifically directed towards that area, including asking the companies their financial situations to address this very issue. And then taking it even a step further is what is the outlook for your company in this area? You know, is this something that you're dabbling in, or is this something that really is going to become a core competency of the company if it isn't already?
And what we've envisioned is, in the event that a company that we would contract with would go out of business, it would likely, we would build in contract language for being able to capture all the data back and be able to have it reestablished in a new system. We would likely be looking again at an outside service provider to provide the new service, because to rebuild the entire infrastructure would be very costly.
So unless all of those potential qualified providers go out of business at the same time, we would likely, kind of like an emergency basis, we
Yeah.
wouldn't go through a long, drawn-out RFP process, but very likely get some kind of emergency contract together so we can continue to function. How many city employees potentially would be dependent on this system? Which is the same number we have today on our internal system, but how many is that?
We have 17,000 on the council control departments, and then 30,000 total across the city.
So 30,000 total, okay.
And we have also received interest from LA County and LAUSD in wanting to participate in this RFP. So potentially, in terms of being able to piggyback off the contract, so potentially it could hypothetically provide different thresholds for pricing depending on numbers.
Oh, okay. But our system would remain our system?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't want to see the city of Los Angeles go through the problems that they had, people not receiving their pay.
Right.
Or having even a few too many zeros on their pay, which still is a problem, like LAUSD had for a long time. Now, when it comes to actual users, for example, a lot of the programs that people use today, of those 30,000 individuals, they have user-friendly programs that they're used to, and they may have been in the workforce now 20 years now, and they're already used to those programs. Are those programs likely to change, or they may not?
Depending on the extent.
Like word processing programs?
Depending on the extent of which, the RFP is written in a way so that we can do email plus. So there are several things that we could add on, depending on whether it looked like it would work for the city or not, as it's being reviewed. But yes, the client applications for people such as word processing or spreadsheets or collaboration and email could look very different.
Now, if that's the case, if they could look different, then that means people are going to have to get over the mind block of learning this new tool. That tends to be a problem, especially when you look at thousands of people, and then all of a sudden at the coffee machine, everybody gets an idea of resistance and how it's terrible, and I heard, and I happen to know on good authority that this is not good as the last system we had, and before you know it, you got a morale problem when it comes to people even willing to give it its appropriate due when it comes to approaching their work. Who's going to handle making sure that if there is retooling with our 30,000 workers, who's going to handle making sure that it goes as smoothly as possible?
The RFP covers training quite extensively because obviously that is a key, just exactly the way you described, a hurdle that we would have to get over to make this completely successful. The one piece of good news is that the agencies and public entities that we've spoken to that have made the switch to a hosted or software as a service system is that all of their fears were here, and what they realized was way down here, that the people took on these systems much easier than what they had expected, because most of us see something more like what we're talking about at home than they do at work. Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be people that do have a learning curve that we have to get over. There are a number of different word processing systems in the city, and that's one of the other things that we've tried to take care of in the RFP, is to make sure that the stuff that has been created already in those older systems and in those older formats can then be utilized in the new system.
So change management is absolutely an issue that needs to be addressed with this project, and part of our plan, if we were to go forward with implementing such a solution, we would have a dedicated project team in ITA that would be involved in the implementation for the transition, and we would also then we would expect that the vendor partner would also have a designated project manager and team that would work with us to be able to handle the various issues that are going to come up in this process.
Okay. Now, when it comes to our old system, we have a bunch of servers that likely are not going to be part of the new system. What are we going to do with those elements that we no longer need them? We paid for them, or are they ours? Are they leased?
All 60 servers belong to the city. About one-third of them are within a year of end of life. Some of them are already supposed to have been retired. And then about one-third can be then repurposed to other IT needs that aren't currently being met. So it'll be a several different answers on the hardware depending on the age.
And what we're also looking to do, I think as you're aware, Councilman, we're also in the process of working on a consolidation effort for servers. So some of the newer servers will be able to repurpose for that consolidation effort.
Now, when it comes to the staff that, because we have an internal system, the staff that supports group-wise, what's likely to happen to those staff?
At this stage, we have, the way we have, with the cost numbers, the cost savings numbers that we've developed, those we're taking into account that we would repurpose those staffs for areas where we need to shore up services. The total number of staff that we've identified that would be freed up would be 30 staff. So it's significant. And I think it's a value of about $1.6 million.
Annually?
Yes.
And so you have some ideas of what you would do, or the path you would take to reposition those individuals, or is it in the form of a plan? And if it's not in the form of a plan, when are you going to have that plan?
We have a number of consolidation efforts that are currently being either planned or drafted along the same lines as this idea of the email services, where we're trying to consolidate and save. Some of those areas, we have some very talented people that are working on the email system, and those talents can be used for some of those consolidation efforts to shore those systems up where that we don't have the support we need in those areas.
And we have several other areas like web services, for example, for the website support for the city. We have several areas like that that are significantly understaffed today.
What's the anticipated length of time that it would take for us to vet out the RFP process and then hopefully get a winning bidder, vet that out, and then they can start the process of?
I would say in city time, an accelerated path would be probably 3 to 4 months. That would be very accelerated.
So we anticipate that, well, see, because the funny thing is we got group-wise payment of $750,000 come July 1st. So are we allowed to, if we have some trailing service from group-wise, are we allowed to have that broken down even further? In other words, we may come July 1st, we're almost there, everything's going well. You know, we don't have to put up a whole $750,000, but maybe a last $100,000 or something like that to make sure that we finalize the transition. Is that in a possibility?
We're looking at
or is it black and white? We either give them the $750,000 July 1st or not.
the way the current licensing agreement is set up, it is an all or nothing payment. We have had some discussions, and we'd like to have continued discussions with Novell about that to be able to see what type of phased approach we could implement if we're unable to put everyone online for by July 1st.
All right, so you're talking to them. When do you think you'll have a better understanding of what our possibilities are come July 1st? $750,000 or some fraction thereof.
We've had an initial discussion with them, and I would say over the next 2 weeks, I would hope that we'd have further dialogue with them on that item.
So within 30 days for sure, if everything goes well.
I'm sorry?
Within 30 days for sure, if everything.
Correct.
So your question was, can we save a portion of the Novell costs? And the answer is whatever is loaded onto our systems as of July 1st, we then would have to pay the next full year's maintenance. So if we can remove certain portions of that, we would not have to pay for maintenance.
But I think it's important that you continue to dialogue with them, because within that answer, there are some technicalities. Because then you're talking about legalities and contractual obligations and things of that nature. So I think it's really important. Unfortunately, we don't tend to go through the details of separation on issues because we see them so far away. But it appears if everything goes as expected with this RFP process, there will be a separation between them and us. And we've never exercised it before. Now it's time to exercise and hopefully have an amicable interpretation of what that separation is going to be like. Now, when it comes to ITA, there's different ways of implementing this changeover. One, I guess you would call it a big bang, and the other one is more of a phased approach. What are we likely going to see? Obviously, looking at what the responses are and who the winner is, but based on our vantage point, what do we feel most comfortable with?
I think we are looking somewhere in between. Obviously, with 30,000 people doing it over a weekend or something would not be feasible. We couldn't get the training done, and so on. So
It's a lot of pizza in one weekend.
But we aren't also looking at doing 18 months or 2 years to get the full transition done, because obviously we're trying to save some of the monies for the system we're replacing up front. So the best definition would be is that we would like to do it swiftly, but we aren't recommending doing it in one fell swoop.
Okay. So we're talking more in weeks and weeks of transition, not necessarily, like you said, 18 months of transition. Okay. And with all due respect, I know I appreciate your answer because it's so hard to give an answer like that when you're dealing with 30,000 units of the human element. To me, that's the hardest variable to nail down, especially when it comes to changing from one system to another. You could flick a switch in a second, but doesn't mean that everybody's going to cooperate and get along, et cetera, and appreciate it. If the city chose to implement an email migration only and not a new office suite system, what would be the cost savings? You gave us a cost saving range earlier. I'm assuming the higher end is obviously a complete change.
The cost saving range would be decreased, and if I remember the numbers correctly, it's somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 10 million over the 5 years.
Instead of 8 to 30.
So definitely including the office software is having the combined email and office suite software is where you get significant savings.
Okay. Is the police department, their system included, their usage of this included?
Yes, they are.
And does that require us to have for them, or is it already across the board when it comes to security of information that we feel confident and comfortable that the level is equal across the city and it satisfies their perhaps higher need or expectation of security?
They are very satisfied with the descriptions that we've given them, and it would be a consistent service across the board.
Okay.
And if I could also add, in our briefings with city departments, we have gotten very strong support from city departments. It's been unanimous that they've said that they see this type of service as a utility service, and they really would like to get out of the business of providing it.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, once we release this RFP and review the proposals, is it possible that maybe we're not satisfied with the responses, or maybe we've even learned even more than we thought during the response period and perhaps not award and then have to retool and rethink it? Is that a possibility?
100%.
Okay. Not that that's ever happened in this city. Happens way too often for the wrong reasons, but I appreciate it when it happens for the right reasons. Being careful is not a wrong reason. Is it possible to do an RFQ instead of an RFP in this process?
It would be possible. We considered that alternative, but because of the interest in bringing in cost savings as quickly as possible, we decided to go with the RFP path. And with that, as you've indicated, if in the end after evaluation of the responses, we determine it doesn't make sense, the city can pull back.
Okay. There's no obligation in the RFP process.
Correct.
Only once it's awarded and contracts are signed, then there's obligation.
Correct. And our plan is, of course, to come before council again with contract, for contract execution and recommendations for vendor selection before anything, is implemented.
Okay. When it comes to Novell, which is connected to our current system that we're utilizing, any correspondence with them or anything like that? Are they asking us, please, 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 don't consider leaving? I mean, let's sit down and talk. I mean, what's going on with them?
We have had open dialogue with them as well as a number of other vendors that have, that when we were doing kind of our initial analysis as look-see for the potential business case for going forward with this, we've had open dialogue with them about this. They actually have a external service, not group-wise, but another
So they
type
may
of
be competing for all we know.
service. Yes, that is the indication that we've gotten from them from our past discussions.
So in a nutshell, they're not necessarily taking it personal or anything like that. They're just, obviously, we're their client, they would love to continue, but now it sounds like they understand and they know that if they want to continue serving us, they're going to have to compete in this new process.
Yes. And in fact, I mean, we would expect, based on the input that we've gotten so far, that there would be probably at least 6 to 8 vendors, could be more, that would respond to this. And it not only is software solution providers, it also is other unlikely suspects that would be in other types of businesses like telecommunications that would be partnering with other companies to provide a service. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what comes forward.
Any other questions?
Let me just ask, when you talked about the savings, if our expectation is to redivert the personnel to other functions, where does the savings come in?
The savings that we would achieve, the $8 to $30 million estimated over a 3-year period, would be for the hardware and software infrastructure that's required to provide the current service that we have in place today.
So we no longer buy the hardware, the hardware is placed on the vendor?
Exactly. And the licensing costs that we pay for all the different components of the email system and or potentially an office software.
Now, what's driven this? Is this, our system is about to go under, or is this being driven by cost savings or more efficiency? What's driving this at this time?
The largest driver for this initiative is cost savings, but along with that, we have over the last probably 4 to 5 years continually get input from people of interest in moving off this software platform to another software platform, email platform. But beyond that, like I said, the biggest driver has been the potential cost savings. Our existing solution that we have with GroupWise, the existing version of software that we have will be maintained. We'll be able to continue to get support from the vendor for another 9 months. After that point, we will, if we were to continue with GroupWise, we would need to upgrade that software, which we're estimating about a $350,000 cost, probably at minimum, in order to continue using GroupWise as a product. So there is a looming potential issue where we will have to address that of doing an upgrade if we continue to stay on the path where we are today.
And then one of the things that when you mentioned about the RFQ versus the RFP, you said that if people basically go forward and apply, if they don't give us what we want, we're not obligated. But do we lose our ability to gain a lot of information out in the universe that would tell us maybe a solution we've not thought about, or other kinds of things that we may, bells and whistles we may want to put in the system?
There's always that potential, Councilman. Given we have done a lot of due diligence on this, and not only in contacting existing clients that have been utilizing these types of services, talking directly with vendors prior to developing an RFP that provide these kind of services, as well as contacting industry analysts like Gartner to really better understand the level of services that are available. So we feel very comfortable with the level of information that we've been able to gain to be able to put forward an RFP at this juncture.
In our current vendor, there's no restrictions that they and not apply?
No, there is,
On RFP, are we already made up our mind that our web-based system is going to be off-site, or if someone comes with a solution on-site, we're not looking for that, so we've already made that decision, that transition?
we have at this point, we did, when we were doing our analysis, we looked at various options that the city has, including upgrading the existing version of GroupWise, as I mentioned, in about a 9-month time frame. We looked at totally replacing our existing email system with a brand-new system and running that in-house. So we looked at those various alternatives, and based on the cost figures, the compelling numbers are really looking at utilizing an outside service to provide the service. And it really comes down to the economies of scale due to the volume of number of clients they have. Kevin can comment on an example of the number of clients that these types of services typically are managing. So we would be a very, very small fraction of their total customers, and as a result, the price per customer is dramatically lower than the cost of what we could support it for in doing that internally.
So we're saying that if we stay on-site, it's required that we manage it? We would not have any option of an on-site with an outside manager?
Based on the numbers, it just didn't pencil out to do an in-house. To run the system in-house, it will cost us more money.
So when we said that, we didn't have to go back and buy all of the equipment and things that you're trying to displace?
Correct.
Now, I would assume if we move forward on the outside, then we're not in the business of looking at upgrades or equipment that becomes obsolete. That's on them.
That is absolutely the case, and that's one of the major benefits of this type of an arrangement, that the maintenance and upgrade and so forth is something that is included as part of the service.
But there's a point of no return. If you go that direction, and fully go into it, your recovery is probably going to stay in that mode forever.
Typically, I mean, it's, when we get down to contract, the term of the contract, I think that you can define a set period of time that would be at least 3 to 5 years for the pricing structure.
But I mean, this is not something you can, every 3 to 5 years, you flop between internal and external.
I wouldn't expect so.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the public who'd like to make a comment on item number 1? A lot of people here. Nobody wants to say anything? Yeah. Did you fill out a card? Thank you. Please bring it forward. Sure. State your name for the record.
Brian Hervey, I'm with Novell.
Oh, okay.
We do have some heartache over the potential of losing the business. We've obviously been a longtime provider of GroupWise to the city, and would like to continue to provide GroupWise as an email platform for the city. I have some comments, but I guess the question is it okay to ask where the cost savings figures come from? As I do some quick math in my head, the actual ongoing maintenance costs for GroupWise to the city is more in the neighborhood of $450,000. The hardware, although maybe being outdated over the course of the next couple of years, is a fixed cost. And there are some third-party software companies that provide software to the city that will be a cost savings. But I'm just curious where the $2 to $10 million figure comes from. Is that a valid question to ask?
Yeah, sure. But you don't ask it of me. I would have to ask it of the department. Anything else?
The other thing is there was a statement made that GroupWise, the life cycle of that is over in 9 months, and the fact of the matter is that it will continue to be supported through 2015. So there is no rush to get this done by November in terms of the product life cycle being over.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me just ask the city staff, I'm assuming somewhere down the line the current company might apply for the RFP or go forward. Is there an ability on some similar questions that he's asked today, that you can share that information from your technical, I don't mean to get into debate, that you
Sure.
share information. Does that give them a hand up if they go forward on the RFP?
During the, we did a proof of concept looking at this and asked 3 companies to, including Novell, to come and talk to us and show us the products so that we could get a better understanding of the products and everything else. And in that time frame, we asked them for a budgetary estimate, non-binding budgetary estimate of what things would cost if we moved forward in this vein. And those were the numbers that I used to do the return on investment.
And part of we included total cost of ownership, which is not only the email licensing portion and the hardware that runs the email system. We included other components that we need to have as part of the total solution, like antivirus, anti-spam, security, and so forth. So it's not only those products that are associated with providing the total email solution, it's also the staff that we have in ITA that are also dedicated to those other functions.
Yeah, Ted Jordan from the City Attorney's Office. It's a good question. Anytime we do an RFP, no, I shouldn't say anytime, oftentimes there is an incumbent who's also participating. They're absolutely allowed to participate. They're not precluded from doing that. In this case, there will be a level playing field, and the RFP is calling for a service that we're not currently getting. So the fact that we currently have the in-house system, we're going out to an RFP for an outsourced system. So although they will have perhaps a better knowledge of what our requirements are, it's really requirements for something that we're no longer going to be continuing doing. We're going out for a new type of system. The RFP speaks for itself, and everyone will have the same information about what it is that we're going to go to. They will have information about what it is that we currently have, but we're going away from that. We're going to something new, and so everyone will have the same information. And the rules or the guidelines against discussing the RFP with the city will be in place for everybody, including the current provider.
Let me ask one other thing. So any other savings in other departments except other than yours as it relates to transition to the system? Are there other people in other departments handling the group-wise that would no longer be doing that? Is that part of your savings?
Yes.
That's part of the 30?
Right.
Correct.
Now, are those bodies yours assigned to other departments? Or they belong to other departments?
They belong to those departments.
So it's a combination of ITA staff and other city department staff.
Thank you.
Any more questions? All right. Thank you for the report. We look forward to the updates as we go along. When do you anticipate putting the RFP out?
We would like to release the RFP by the end of the week.
Okay. All right. So very soon. Okay. Anybody else for public comment on this item? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on this item is now closed. We're on item number 1, to report from the department. With that, there were no actions to be taken by this committee. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Note and file that report. And we are now open for general public comment. That covers issues that face this committee but are not on today's agenda. Is anybody here for general public comment to this committee? General public comment is now open. Seeing and hearing no one come forward on general public comment to this committee, general public comment is now closed. With that, this committee is now adjourned.